Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of the Long Lost Podcast. It's me, Lyra. I'm speedrunning talking through this part. I don't know why.
I'm also here. It's me, Lana. I'm here, too.
We both have extremely similar levels of energy today. And this week we're talking about Season 1, Episode 14. Special. But before that, Lana, how are you doing?
I don't know. I'm doing how I'm always doing. You know, I'm here.
Yeah? Anything going on? Getting you down?
No.
No?
No, that's all I got. Just no.
Chill.
Anyway, Lost.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure all that is going to get cut. Lost, should we talk about this episode?
We should definitely talk about this episode. We should definitely start with top-level feelings.
Okay.
You liked this episode?
I thought this episode was great, honestly.
Oh, boy.
I also, here's something else that I am like slowly trying to grapple with whether this is the truth or not. I'm wondering if my feelings about every episode of Lost hinge entirely on my mood outside of the show.
So it's interesting you say that because I feel that I get tinges of that for sure. Like, I think it's definitely a thing, right? That like, if you're having a shit day and you're like, I'm going to sit down and watch this episode, you're just in a more sour mood, right?
Yeah.
I think that's definitely a thing. I don't know what degree it's happening with you. I'm going to say it's 100% the only reason you like or don't like an episode. That way I can pretend that all of my reactions are like objective and pure and correct. You know, so when we disagree that I'm the right one.
Right. Because there is an objective way to understand
media. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say that that's why you liked this episode, is you're just having a good day.
Okay, so you hated this one, clearly.
I really did hate this one. I thought it was a bad episode of television, A, and B, it was during this episode of the podcast, there might be times when I just do not have much to say, and that is due entirely to my own emotional and mental place in the world at the moment and broadly. And you might just have to talk for shit. Basically, I thought this was a bad episode of television, and it was just also sucked to watch aside from that because of its content for me. I struggle, some of the emotional content in this episode, I have struggles with, and I have always had struggles with, and I particularly now have struggles with.
Are you down to record this episode? Do we need to...
Oh, yeah. I might just, like, shut the fuck up for a bit and not really say much at times.
Okay.
That's totally fine.
Like, if you wanted to wait a day or two or
Oh,
whatever.
no. That would not help. This is my life. I live here.
All right. Well...
I'm curious, before we go into it, can you imagine, like, why, if you had to guess, why do you think I don't like it as an episode of TV?
Okay, if I had to guess, my guess would be because you're like, well, let me think about it. My guess would be because you're like, Michael's a bad dad, and all this background about him to make us sympathize with him is bullshit.
That's close enough, yeah.
What is your actual thing?
Well, let's discover it. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Okay, so we get a quick like little previously on Lost, and it's
was that a different voice, by the way? I feel like the previously on Lost was a weird voice that I've never heard before.
I think that's just the guy. I think it always sounds like that.
Okay, it was weird.
Yeah, I don't know who that is. Anyway, the previously on focuses on Charlie and Claire mostly. And then we start the episode where the very first thing that we hear is Michael yelling Walt's name. He's like, Walt! And apparently, so that we open on basically Michael's like, where did Walt go? And he like chats with Charlie and Jack for a second. Like
nobody else cares. Walt. He's like, my son has gone missing, and everybody else is just like, what's that? Oh,
it is very weird that everybody else is like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, like Charlie's just like, okay, but have you seen Claire's suitcase? And then he's like, my son is missing, and Charlie's like, oh, well, I haven't seen him. It's so strange.
I did find that opening conversation really weird. Like,
it's very weird.
Because they, like, talk past each other. It's like, Walt's like, hey, have you seen my son? And then Charlie's like, have you seen Claire's suitcase? And then Walt's like, but have you seen my son? And Charlie's like, wait, you're looking for Walt?
Yeah,
it's
they
like,
talk past each other, but on very different levels in terms of urgency.
Yeah,
And Jack also doesn't care, and then Hurley doesn't care. Like, none of them are treating this as, like, any kind of serious thing. I don't know.
Maybe it's because Michael does this, like, every 4 hours.
And then Walt is always just fine.
He's always just, like, with another person or whatever.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. I don't know. And there's like also a moment here where like Michael asked Jack, he's like, "Didn't you listen to your dad when you were 10?" And Jack's like, "Maybe too well.
I have remember my daddy issues. That's my trait.
That's me having daddy issues." I actually liked that.
I liked
honestly.
it. No,
Yeah.
I did. That was the one part of this scene that I liked. I thought the rest of it was really bad.
Yeah, and that's kind of a cool thing. I like having that about the flashbacks where like little moments between characters, it's like, oh, I actually understand the sort of depth that there's more
Yeah.
depth here than the other person would realize. Like that's cool.
They can drop in stuff in a single simple line now that we get and we can feel, not only is it like informative and it's cool, but we can get to feel good about ourselves for knowing things, which is like fun.
Totally. It's also interesting because I think like Jack also, well, Hurley is like, yeah, Hurley also shows up at the end of the scene and he's like, "Hey, Michael like sucks at being a dad, doesn't he?"
Yeah, Hurley. Okay, let's talk about Hurley. I want to talk about Hurley. Remember last time when Hurley was like, "Hey, Boone, this isn't a game, you know. This is serious business." Now Hurley rolls up. He's like, "Who wants to play some fucking golf, guys?"
Yeah, he's back on the golf.
Like, it's just inconsistent, and I don't like it. And Hurley sucks. We learned that last episode. Hurley just sucks. He's actually just shitty. So this is game Hurley is back. This isn't a game Hurley is gone. And then also Hurley is just like, wow, yeah, that black guy really hates being a dad, doesn't he? Definitely. And I'm like, wow, cool. A, thanks Hurley, and B, thanks writers for like writing that. Like,
I mean, the problem is that Michael is written that way, right? Because
but like, so this is the thing I want to talk about with other scenes. I feel like in this episode, the writers were like, let's address in the text that people are treating, it's not explicit in the text, but that people are basically being racist towards Michael. While they are being racist towards Michael. It's the most bizarre thing.
Yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on that as we like sort of
It's very strange. I don't like
the flashbacks.
I did not like Hurley here. I thought this scene was terrible.
Yeah, well, one thing that I thought was interesting is that Jack defends Michael. He's like, being a dad is hard or whatever, which I think is kind of like Jack's own like distorted images of fatherhood because of his own relationship with his dad.
I agree. I like that
through.
part. I like that part too. I think Jack was the silver lining of this scene. I think that it's him with his dad having some, like you could tell even in his flashbacks with his dad where he was upset with and acted against his dad, but even while he was doing that, he wasn't doing it without sympathy for his dad. That's very interesting. And I think B, Jack was kind of playing the role of keeping the peace. Not really keeping the peace, but like, we're gonna all be friends here because this is the situation we're in. We're not gonna be talking shit on nobody.
Yeah, you kind of need to, we need to be cool with each other, at least.
But I did like Jack here, though.
Yeah. So, okay, this launches us into our first flashback where basically we see Michael with his pregnant girlfriend. Michael is like, "Oh, I want to buy this expensive crib for our son. I'm really excited to have a kid." And we learn that they're not married because
she doesn't want to marry him.
Because she doesn't want to marry him. Yeah. And they kind of have a little discussion. We learn that Walt is named after Michael's dad, but it seems like he's stoked about being a dad.
Yep. The only thing I have to say about this flashback is that flashback Michael is a little cutie. I don't know. He's just a little cutie.
Yeah, he's all smiling. It's like, oh, yeah. Wait, hold on. What is the actor's name? Harold Perrineau.
Harold.
I think in this episode he actually gets to like do some acting that isn't just him being mad, which
it's
is
cool.
Nice. Yeah. He definitely sells like this like younger version of him.
Yeah.
Being a dad.
It was believable. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And then we cut back to the island and we see that Walt is hanging out with Locke and Locke's new like sidekick, Boone.
You know what Boone is here?
Uh-huh.
And then we can finish describing the scene.
Yeah.
This is totally the vibe I got. I don't know, like really strongly. I don't know why so specifically, but thrall. Boone is just like a thrall now.
Yeah, he's, I was thinking like a disciple, that's kind of...
A disciple, but more nothing going on in the head,
No, there is not a lot going on for him. Yeah. that's just his thing, I guess.
Yeah,
He
so-
just follows Locke around now.
Locke is teaching Walt to throw a knife again.
Yeah.
And Walt throws it bad, and then Locke's like, imagine hitting the spot with it. Imagine it in your mind's eye. And then Walt does it again, and he does it. And then Michael shows up, and Michael's like, fuck you, get away from my son. And then Boone tackles Michael, and then Michael punches Boone, and then Locke's like, what the fuck? And then they kind of just fuck off. That's the scene.
That is the scene. Locke at the very end says something about Walt. He's like,
Yes,
he's basically
he does.
like, well, he says some stuff that is real and some stuff that sort of ticks Michael off, obviously. Like, one of the things he says is like, he says to Michael, you know why your son has formed an attachment to me? It's because I treat him like an adult and you treat him like a child, which I think
We've commented on before.
yeah, we've like said that exact thing, right? And then he says like, Locke says some other shit. He's like, yeah, Walt's been through more than most people go through in their entire lives at this point, and like,
Which is not true.
which is true.
No,
And he
it's
also
not
says-
true. I want to point out that that's not true. He's gone through a plane crash and his mother dying and being stuck on an island. But, like, you take a fucking 75-year-old person, I'm going to say they've gone through more shit. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fair. But, you know, I think the point he's making
I know. Yeah.
And then he also says like, Walt should, what is the exact thing that he says?
Walt should be allowed to reach his potential.
Yeah. He says like he's different or something, right?
Yeah, at
He's
some
like,
point he
Walt's-
says he's special. I'm not sure if this is in this scene or later, but at some point he says he's special.
Yeah, Walt's different, or he's special. or
Which is the
whatever.
title of the episode.
Oh, shit. And Michael's very like, what did you say about that?
Yeah, so he's like, what? So this is, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
Uh-huh.
In this scene, it's part of what I was talking about with the writers and the racism. It doesn't matter exactly when it happens. Michael and Locke will have some discussions, and Locke will, I believe it starts in the scene at least, basically say, you weren't there for your son. You aren't being there for your son. And I am, and that's why he's hanging out with me, because I'm spending, like, you're choosing not to spend time with your son. And Michael's like, what the fuck? Did you really just say that to me and stuff?
Mm-hmm.
And the way I interpreted this is, and maybe I'm wrong, but was Michael being like, yo, dude, you're being really racist, right? Like, did you really just say that to me? Really? And it was really interesting to have the writers who have treated Michael in a very racist fashion have him react that way, because they're the ones who wrote it.
Yeah.
It felt very just like they're pulling a blindfold over their own. I don't know. It just felt so strange to me. Be like, writers, that you're the ones writing, right? Like, what is going on here? How are you doing? Like, this is so strange. It felt very strange to me. A, because racism bad, and B, because like, how are y'all writing these things simultaneously? Very strange. I don't know. It felt weird to me.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm like trying to remember that moment.
I'm probably what's happening is that I was reading that in Michael's reaction, and that's not what Michael's reaction was about textually. That's probably what's happening.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like it's like, in this scene, Michael's reaction, we've seen the whole time that Michael is like shitty about this stuff when it comes to like, you know, just that he's very controlling of Walt and stuff. And I think like him being like, what did you say? Is him being like, what you said it's like reminding me of something, which we
you're
gets
right.
revealed later.
You're
in the
totally right,
flashbacks.
and I just read it wrong. You're totally
Yeah,
right.
for me, it's like I knew to read it that way because I knew what the episode, you know, where it's kind of going.
I just
but
read it
that's-
wrong, but no, you're right.
But that's interesting, though. I mean, that's like not... It's definitely not wrong to be like, yeah, the writers put themselves into a position where, like, those kind of readings can happen. Because they, like, put themselves in this position where, like, Michael's an absentee father, right?
The specific instance where I was reading it that way is Locke says, you haven't spent enough time with him to see it, but he's different.
Mm.
And then Michael says, like, what did you say to me? Or what did you say? And yeah, you're totally right. It's because Locke says he's different, and that's what Michael is reacting to.
Right.
And I read it as Michael reacting to Locke saying you haven't spent enough time with him.
Totally.
And basically it does remove the weirdness from my reaction to the writers because they aren't writing Michael to be... Basically, this sucks. This sucks so much. I can't believe you liked this episode. My confusion stemmed from the fact that Michael was identifying and calling out racism against him while the writers were putting him through racist stuff.
Sure.
And my bad reading, what it does is it removes the writers having him identify and call out the racism against him. So basically, Michael is written to be ignorant of all the racist shit going on around him.
Yeah, it's like he gets shit.
Which makes sense given who's writing it. It no longer confuses me. It pivots me from being confused to just understanding that the writers suck.
Right, because the things that he, like, calls out as being racist are things that, when they have to do with him, they kind of aren't.
Yeah, which is something that a white person would write about a black person. Is like...
Yeah, they're like, oh, they're sensitive and...
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Whatever. When it's like, no, like, racism actually is real.
It's all cleared up for me. The writers just suck. Everything makes sense again.
What do you think about Boone in this scene?
I fucking... I don't like it.
You don't like him being, like, Locke's, like, weird lapdog?
No, I don't. It's just, I think it's boring and not cool. Like, I think that the coolness of Charlie said something in a previous episode, talking with Jack, where he's like, if there's one person I trust to save us, it's John Locke. And I was like, wow, that's cool. That's somebody being, like, having faith in Locke and being devoted to Locke, right?
Right.
That's cool because Charlie is an independent person who has had an experience with Locke and after that experience chosen to place his faith there.
Uh-huh.
That's cool. That makes me think Locke is cool. That makes me think Charlie is cool. Whatever brains Boone had, got fucking scooped out last episode.
Yeah, he does seem like he's devoted to Locke like
he's a zombie.
Leader.
Yeah, it's very cultish. It's not cool anymore. It's not cool for Locke. It's certainly not cool for Boone, but it's not cool for Locke either to have a fucking zombie minion. Like, I don't know. I don't like that.
It is... I
don't like it at all.
Boone needs to, like, go to a Codependence Anonymous meeting or something, because, like, he only knows how to define himself by, like, another person.
Yeah, he was attached to Shannon, and now he's attached to Locke, yeah.
Yeah, that's, like, his whole deal.
I thought this scene was terrible. What did you think about the scene? We've described the scene. How did you come away feeling about the scene?
I was okay with it, because, okay, Boone is a huge fucking idiot, and it is weird that it's just, like, a cult. Like, he's like a cult follower now. Like, that's pretty stupid. Okay, Locke is very, like, in control of himself, right? And he's very sort of pragmatic with people. And Boone, like, being a huge fucking idiot who just, like, flies off the handle for no reason. Him trying to align himself with Locke is potentially interesting in that it, like, complicates the control that Locke has over situations.
Okay, sure. I don't know that I feel that positively about it, but I wouldn't argue with any of that. But I'm talking about not the implications of the scene. The scene itself. So here's how I think about this episode broadly. I probably should have said this with my broad feelings, but I think that this episode. I think that there are a few cool ideas and a lot of bad ideas, but that even the cool ideas are executed very poorly, and it makes them fall flat for me. So, like, Locke says something in this scene, which I thought was really cool. He's talking about imagining it, seeing it, visualizing it in your mind's eye.
Uh-huh.
And then Walt does it and achieves it. And Walt says something about, it's like it was real when I saw it. And Locke says something like, maybe it was, or something. And that's a cool implication to me, because it's speaking to, and we get more of this later, but it's speaking to the island being able to manifest things with thoughts or belief on the island.
Yeah.
Or just generally. Specifically maybe with Walt, right? And that's really cool. That's a cool, provoking thought.
Yeah.
Just manifesting things with your thoughts. That's neat. But it was surrounded... The writing I thought was terrible. Locke goes, see it in your mind's eye. Do you know what that is? And then Walt's like, yeah, it's when you see things in your head. Like, it was very straightforward, bland, boring writing that is not how I think anybody would talk to each other. It wasn't characterful for any of the characters. Like, do you know what the mind's eye is? Like, what are we doing here?
That is weird. I think that little part of the exchange was weird.
I just thought that even the cool things are brought down by it just being clunky and not concisely written, not well written. And it made me not like, I came away from certain scenes, including this one, feeling like, that's a cool thing to think on. I didn't enjoy watching it.
Interesting. That's an interesting like takeaway. Yeah. Well, should we talk about next scene?
Yeah, let's do it.
Next stuff. Okay, so we get another flashback, and in this one, Walt is a little baby, and Michael's playing with him, and then his girlfriend is basically like, hey, I got a legal job in Amsterdam, and I'm gonna move, and I'm taking Walt with me, and we're not married, so you can't, like, do anything about it, basically. And Michael's like, he's like pretty upset, because it seems like he actually really likes being a dad, and he loves Walt a lot and stuff. And yeah, that's what happens, right?
Yep.
Something about this scene, and something that happens in the flashbacks a lot too, is like it shows Michael having like some of the traits that he always has, but they're in a more sympathetic context. Like, for instance, like he kind of like, and also these traits suck. It sucks that he has these character traits, but like he makes a lot of excuses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he does.
And I think in these flashback scenes, he kind of does that, but in contexts where it like feels a little bit more legitimate or a little bit more sympathetic, and it's also like less. It's just nice seeing him not fucking like angry all the time.
Well, I think that's part of that's part of what it is.
Yeah.
Is that he's still making the excuses, but that he's doing it in the midst of feeling hurt and wanting something genuinely wholesome and lovely.
Right.
And that makes you more sympathetic to his making excuses or whatever it may be, because what he's doing it around, you understand as a good thing, rather than in the present day, he doesn't have that good thing at the core. So He's just being an asshole for no reason.
Right. You know, I do like that this sets up the question for the episode of like, well, how did Michael get to this point? That's like a background question. That's like a question that I am interested in, like the flashbacks exploring.
Do you think that this episode answers that question?
Like, kind of not. Like,
it doesn't at all for me.
Yeah, it's like it fleshes out a lot of things, but also kind of doesn't explain.
Which is my biggest problem with the episode.
Yeah, I think that is legit. It kind of doesn't explain Michael's like antagonism towards Walt.
Yeah,
you know,
I agree. And we talked about this very early on with Michael. It is perfectly fine to have a character. You got to be careful about it, and you should be aware of what the fuck you're doing when you're doing it with a black man.
Yeah.
But it's perfectly fine to have a character who is not a good father. That's not the issue with Michael in this series so far. It's not that he's not a good father. It's that the way in which he is not a good father is not relatable, understandable, or sympathetic towards. Like, there's nothing there to latch onto to see good in him around. That's right. The fucking problem with it. So I had a lot of issues with, and I'll say it here, and it'll be a theme that came up repeatedly for me throughout this episode, but I felt like I kept being told, this is who Michael is. Michael is somebody who really wanted a kid, really loves his son, you know, cares for his son a lot, really wants to be in his son's life. I felt like I kept being told that.
Yeah.
But never shown that.
Yeah.
And that's a thing that I feel like has happened with other characters. It's definitely happened with Kate.
Sure.
It happens with Sawyer some, even, to be honest, that we're told he's this bad boy, but like he doesn't actually do anything, that bad boy. And I'm getting really fucking tired. And this episode, really, it was my big sticking point. The biggest one, at least, was you're telling me that this is who he is, but you've shown me something entirely opposite. And they don't go together at all for me.
Yeah, to me, it's like, yeah, I think that like my issue with it is really just like the end of the episode does not like it doesn't like bring those two parts of Michael into a synthesis.
We don't, because it doesn't show us how he got to where he is from where he started.
I would even say it's like the parts in the flashbacks, like, and I think a big part of this is Harold Perrineau's performance, but he's great in the flashbacks. Yeah, he is really good in the flashbacks. Yeah, he's like a really good actor. I like buy that he really wants this relationship with his son, and like that it kind of sucks because it's just clear that like Walt's mom doesn't love Michael, right? Or like doesn't want to like doesn't prioritize that relationship, right?
Yes. That sucks. And we feel how much that sucks through his performance. Like, he fucking kills it.
He sells it for sure. Actually a very good actor, which you don't get to see in the rest of the show because it's like such a breath of fresh air to not have him just be fucking angry all the time. It's crazy.
I agree.
It's like, could they just...
Also, I feel like... I don't know. I struggle with the flashbacks from here on, basically, because I'm just like, this situation really, really sucks. And I don't want to experience that because it sucks. So, like, I don't know. I'm just like, I guess, I think the flashbacks were good, but I didn't enjoy them, is what I would say.
Just because it's like, it's a lot of...
It's a lot of relationship emotional stuff that I have in my life is something I struggle with, I guess, in terms of like dealing with, even not in my own, just like hearing stories or in fiction, having relationships like break apart is, for whatever reason, just like hits me way harder than other stuff.
Totally.
So it's like, I'm like, yeah, these flashbacks are probably good, and maybe part of the reason why, like, maybe if I was able to better enjoy them for being good, I would have had a more favorable view of the episode.
But because it's like, it hits close to home or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, it sucks. I don't want to watch this. Even if it's good, like,
Totally. Yeah, that's a legit feeling, for sure. So the next thing that happens is basically, like, Michael is talking to Son. Like, Walt's asleep, and he's just like, Michael's bemoaning the fact that he's like, I don't know how to talk to Walt. And then he's also like, I can't let my kid grow up on an island. That's, like, fucked up.
Yep.
That's what happens.
I like that Son came over to talk to him. That was cool.
Yeah, I like Son getting to interact with other characters.
Yeah.
And like be in the show, you know? It's cool. Then the next thing that happens, Jack, Saeed, and Shannon.
Also, okay, when this part starts with Saeed and Jack and Shannon, my note that I wrote down before the rest of the scene played out was just, save me, Saeed. Because I was not having a good time.
That's hilarious. I also have a note for this scene, but anyway, basically Saeed has had a breakthrough in understanding the map and is like, well, if I like overlay the maps in these different ways, because there's like multiple pages of this map or whatever, he's like, if I overlay these, it makes some kind of sense or something.
So you've got to, the takeaway has to be that Rousseau was coding this map, right? That it was deliberately obtuse.
Yeah, either that or it's like she just like
ran out of paper? What the fuck? No, only that, right? Because otherwise, it's why it doesn't work. It's because they don't address that. Because they make it seem it's just like, oh, this is how she made the map. But like, it's across 3 different pieces of paper.
Yeah, it's like, that makes no sense, right? Well, to me, it's like, I interpret that as like, oh, maybe there's something with the island where like there's something weird with the geography or like navigating the island.
Okay, whatever.
Something.
Yeah, sure.
But it is weird. It is weird. I agree. Yeah. And then basically Michael just like disrupts this conversation. It's like, hey guys, I'm going to build a raft to get off the island. If anybody wants to help me out, thanks.
And then Jack and Saeed are both kind of just like, perhaps not the best idea. And then Michael's like, well, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's a weird scene. It's so weird.
Yeah, it's kind of, I like that we're getting updates on this like map thing. I like that they're like gaining insight on it, and it's like, oh, maybe they'll try going somewhere on there, and there'll be an adventure happening. You know what I mean?
I like to imagine that. So that's where the scene ends. I like to imagine that after Michael walks off, the three of them, Kate and, or not Kate, Shannon and Saeed and Jack, all just kind of look at each other and go, that was weird, and just continue their discussion, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I like to imagine it.
It is funny. He just does like a weird drive-by.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, he just pops in to
disrupts
be like,
their conversation, and it's just like, I'm making a raft.
and like none of them seem to care. Like to none of them are, that's a great idea, but also none of them are like, hey buddy, you really can't do that. They're just like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Jack and Saeed are both just like, sounds kind of dumb, but I guess go off. Something I wrote down is that in this line, Michael has a line where he says, I don't think anyone wants to get off as much as I do right now.
I didn't pick that up. That's funny.
Yeah, I thought that was good.
Also, like, I get what he's saying. I get his point of like, I want to make a raft so that we are the ones in control about whether or not we're leaving this island. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
But literally, he's telling them this in the middle of their discussion about how to get off the island. Like, they're actively working on it right now. Like, that's what they're doing, right?
Well,
with the map stuff. I think that's what they're
I
doing.
guess
They want to get to the
sort of.
transmission-y place.
Yes, no, you're right. That is kind of the overarching goal, was like they're trying to figure out where the transmission.
So I just think it's funny that he interrupts their high-level discussion of how to escape the island with, I'm going to build a raft. You guys don't care about getting off the island because you're just here with your papers.
Yeah, none of y'all give a shit about getting off.
Yeah.
Unlike me.
I'm going to go find Kate.
Yeah, Kate would love to get off
Yeah.
the island.
The island.
But
yeah,
also,
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next scene fucking sucks, honestly. Is this the
what
scene
is
that sucks, or is that happening?
They all
later?
suck. They all suck. The rest of the scenes in this fucking episode suck. This is what I'm saying.
No, this isn't the part that sucks. But basically, like, Walt is reading a comic in Spanish, and Michael comes up to him.
No, this scene does suck. Fuck you.
It does suck, you're right. Because Michael comes up to him and is like, hey, you don't know Spanish, so stop reading that. You've got to come help me fucking find shit for a raft or whatever. But he doesn't even say that it's for a raft. He's just like, you got to help me sift through trash, basically. And then Walt is like, yeah, I can't read Spanish, but I like the art or whatever. And then Michael's like, I used to draw stuff. And Michael's like, or Walt's like, doesn't really care. That's
the part that makes this. It was going to be bad anyway. The way that Michael is treating Walt is bad, and this scene was going to be bad.
Yeah.
The part that kills me on it, the part that I really found upsetting or just to be very bad, was the way that they almost like pump fake Michael connecting with his son here. Where he goes,
yeah.
Oh, you like art? I used to do art. Like, I used to what'd you say, like, trace the comics and I learned to draw when I was around your age.
Yeah.
And then when his son, who he does not at this moment really have a strong relationship with, doesn't immediately engage with him positively, he throws a little fucking tantrum and basically, like, it's just like, okay, fuck you too, dude.
Yeah.
And that's horrible.
It sucks. The thing that sucks is he does not genuinely try to get to know Walt.
Yeah,
right?
well,
He, like, asks him this one question, oh, you like the art. But he doesn't, there's no follow-ups, right?
Well,
He's not
what he needed was Walt to immediately engage with him positively on what he said. He needed Walt to go, oh, wow, when you were my age, you were drawing? I'd love to draw. Can you teach me how to draw? That's what Michael needed from Walt.
Yeah.
But the thing is that Walt is a child.
Yes, yeah.
And what Michael needs to do there is be able to weather Walt not being excited about it and put work in to develop a relationship with his son instead of just being like, oh, you don't care? Well, fuck you, dude. He just, like, grabs the comic and storms off.
Yeah,
and it's really terrible.
It's
worse than if he was just like, hey, dude, come on, we gotta find some trash. Like, it's way worse than that.
Yeah, and at this point, it's, like, so obviously incongruous with, like, how he acts in the flashback. So really it is setting up, like, how did he get to be shitty?
There was a shift somewhere, yes. Right?
Yeah.
That's what pissed me off so much, is, that it's incongruous to the flashbacks. Flashback Michael would have worked harder.
Yeah, I'm glad we're, like, talking about this, too, because I'm, like, I totally agree with that, and it's, like, basically, like, I think it's fucked up I don't think Michael's relationship with Walt should be the way it is. Generally, I don't think the writers should have done that because it's a racist trope, and also it's like it just kind
Not
of sucks to
entertaining.
watch. Yeah. But, just looking at this episode, right? Okay, I'm willing to buy into the dramatic arc of like, how did this happen, right? How did this change happen in him? But it is true that we don't
This is
learn
what I'm
that.
saying. This is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We so don't learn it. It is so not present in this episode that I don't believe the writers approached this episode with that in mind. I do not believe that they approached this episode with, okay, we're going to show flashbacks of Michael being a certain way, starting here, and then we know that he's at, point D, and we're going to show him at point A, and then we're going to speculate and think about how he got to where he is now from where he started. I can't believe that they came with that approach. I think that I must believe that they think that the Michael in the flashbacks is the Michael that we are seeing now, and that this is the way that Michael fails to have a relationship with his son. Do you see what I'm saying? That that he hasn't changed, and that they are the same, and that the situation that he's in, this is the way that same Michael reacts in this situation, which is not interesting. It sucks, and it feels weird because, what do you think? Do you think that they are like, yes, this Michael that we have in present day is fundamentally a different person, or not?
I honestly think that they don't realize how shitty Michael's behavior is.
I agree.
On the island, because
that's kind of what I'm saying, is that they don't see the incongruity between flashback Michael and present day Michael.
Yeah, because there was a previous episode where it was like kind of the framing of the episode made it so that like Walt was the one that needed to do something to address the relationship.
Yep.
Which they don't do in this one. But they do continue to fail to recognize that like Michael needs to, I mean, a bunch of things suck. The main thing is that he's like so controlling towards Walt, right? But the other really big thing is he doesn't like genuinely try to get to know him. Yeah. He doesn't like ask questions and follow through on questions and shit. Like when they're talking about the comic book, it's like the Michael that we see in the flashbacks, it feels like he would be like, oh yeah, who's your favorite character? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, oh, what do you think's happening in this issue? Right? You can't read Spanish. It's like literally anything to like ask about it, to try and bond over this thing. But he.
That's why I think you're right. No,
he acts.
I think you're entirely right, and that you put it in a way that is exactly right, and that I couldn't find to put it, but that they just don't realize the severity of his poor behavior. So to their minds, they're just like, oh yes, he is struggling to be a father. Like that's how they view his current behavior,
right? And
that isn't so different than flashback Michael.
Yeah, because like
it really is though. So fuck them. Basically, just the writers. I think this episode sucks.
Because it even could work if, like, Michael had one half of that equation. Like, if he was, like, genuinely tried to get to know Walt and connected with him on stuff, but then, like, had this kind of, like, helicopter dad, didn't know how to actually, like, interact, like, try to set boundaries with Walt and shit. Like,
yeah,
basically what I'm saying is, like, if that could make more sense if there was, like, some of that was there and some of it wasn't there. But
if we saw somebody who is interested in his relationship with his son and clearly loves his son, but doesn't know how to effectively father his son.
Right.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and that's something that we've been saying since, like, literally, like, the first episode of the show.
Yeah, so I'm really pissed off that in the flashbacks we're getting somebody who's very interested in being a father to his son. That's really upsetting me.
Yeah, it's...
Stop telling me that you've done the work to characterize somebody in a way when you've done the opposite. I don't believe that the writers understand the characters they've made, and then they decide at some point that we can just direct the audience to view them in a certain way however we feel like it, regardless of what we've actually had them do.
Sure.
And that, as a viewer and like consumer of a piece of media, is really devastating to my viewing, because it makes me feel like the writers, A, think I'm stupid and don't have my own free thought, and B, it makes me think that they don't understand their own work. And that's makes it hard for me to believe in it, too.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, it the main thing it reads as is, like, not having a great handle on their own characters. I think, like, that's totally true.
Yeah.
I think, like, certain characters, it seems like they do. It's, like, the ones that the writers are really interested in.
The white men?
I guess. Yeah, the white guys.
No, like, literally, I was thinking about this. It's the white men. It's Locke, Jack, Sawyer.
It's pretty fucked up, but yeah, those are the characters who it seems like they have the best handle on, right?
Who are the ones who kind of don't make any sense?
Yeah.
I guess Saeed, yeah. But, like, Kate makes no sense. Fucking Michael makes no sense.
Yeah.
Jin, we just don't get any of Jin, so I don't know.
At some point we'll get a flashback and find out more of what's going on with him.
But no, I was thinking about this just in terms of, like, I think that because I was, like, feeling kind of annoyed that I was like, why is it that I think the strongest characters are all white men? Like, am I being fucked up in the head? And then I was like, oh no, it's just that those are actually the only characters that are successfully written.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, on YouTube, so I've been watching this commentary YouTuber, but anyway, he had a video which I did not watch, but it was like him talking to another YouTuber, and that the title of the video was like Lost was secretly racist, which I think has to do with the behind the scenes stuff, right? The writers.
Yeah, viewing it in the year 2024, it doesn't feel like much of a secret.
It's not secretly. It's like there's just a bunch of like kind of racist shit about how the show works, which sucks.
Checking me out?
Yes. My husband doesn't know.
I asked them, what were you thinking? Don't stop to think this right now.
Okay, the next scene, there's a flashback where Michael is on a payphone talking to his ex. I forget her name. And basically, like, we learn that she is getting married to...
No, we don't.
We just learned that she's with someone.
He didn't even know that in his mind, they were still on a break.
Yeah, it doesn't even seem like he thinks of her as, like, his ex.
And then literally on the phone, he gets to overhear a man's voice saying, like, oh, come on, honey, let's go.
Yeah.
And that's approximately the worst thing ever, and it makes me want to die. Anyway, move on.
Yeah, and then basically, like, they just find this out, and Michael's like, all right, I'm coming to Amsterdam, where you're at right now, and I'm coming to see Walt.
He learns that she's dating her boss that offered her the job that took her away to Amsterdam.
Yes. So he's pretty fucking upset. He looks pretty heartbroken and stuff. And he, like, hangs up the phone and just, like, steps into the street and immediately gets hit by a car.
Holy shit. Like, that was an actual moment of, like, whoa, okay.
Yeah. It was pretty shocking.
Yeah, it was. I was wondering at the beginning, why is he doing this on a payphone in the middle of the street?
Yeah.
And the answer is because he needs to get hit by a car.
Yeah. I guess, I don't really know.
It's because he needs to get hit by a car, and the writers, I get, this one does not bother me. I'm not pissed off about this one, but
sure.
The writers have shown that when they want to get to point C from point A, they are not concerned with point B whatsoever.
Sure.
They'll just be like, no, fuck it, who gives a shit? We'll just have it go this way. Yeah, he gets fucked up.
Yeah.
He's all bloody and shit.
Yeah, he gets, like, fucking
wrecked.
Hit.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the ground and shit. Okay, then the next scene, back on the island. Charlie is looking for Claire's diary amongst her stuff. And Kate is like, well, I have an idea of who, like, I think Kate basically says that, right? Does she say, like, I have an idea?
I don't know. It's like a 15-second scene.
Yeah, it doesn't even really matter. It'll end up being something, I guess. Then we see Michael and Walt doing they're looking for some trash or whatever. And basically Walt is like, am I being punished? And Michael's like, nah, we're just, looking for stuff. We're trying to take control of our destiny. But he also, like, doesn't tell Walt that he's like, I'm trying to build a raft, right?
No, yeah, he's not good at communicating with his child.
Yeah. After this, Charlie and Kate go up to Sawyer and they're like, hey, give me the...
Wait. We need to talk about this scene just real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not a huge thing for the scene, but I got this weird vibe visually watching the scene that it crops up a couple times later in the episode. I think that the set design for this episode is bad. I think it's bad. I can't even exactly tell you why, but that's fine because I'm not a filmmaker. But this, just visually, they're at a crash scene looking for things they need out of the crash.
Yeah.
I don't buy that this is a crash scene. I don't think that this was well designed as a crash scene. It looks like they had very little time and they were like, take this shit and throw it on the ground. It doesn't look like a believable crash scene to me. It just doesn't. I don't know what they should have done to make it look believable, but they didn't do it. And
yeah.
I think that it's because there is a scene later in this episode that ate their entire budget. I actually think that's why. And that they didn't have the budget to craft a lot of the other scenes with care. That's what I think.
I can see that.
And it's not a huge deal. It's just like this weird kind of like...
It is like kind of just a pile of stuff. It's not super convincing.
Well, especially because it's been a strong point of this show. The location shooting and the set design has all looked so good on the island. It's all looked so believable and real and lived in and good that seeing it look bad gave me a weird vibe.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, now we can move on.
Yeah, so basically Charlie and Kate go up to Sawyer. Charlie's like, hey, could you give me Claire's diary? And Sawyer's like, I mean, who says I have it? I do have it, though.
Sawyer's being a bad boy.
Yeah, he's doing his hard boy thing. He does have the diary. And then, like...
He's taunting Charlie.
Yeah.
About it. Yeah.
He's taunting Charlie. He's, like, making up bullshit diary entries to, like, as if Claire is making fun of Charlie. And then Charlie just, like, punches Sawyer in his, like, arm that's still healing.
Uh-huh.
And Sawyer fucking hits Charlie in the face with, like, the biggest punch sound effect. But anyway, Charlie gets the diary and leaves. And Kate's like, you didn't really read it, did you, Sawyer? And because I think...
Kate's like, I see the real you, Sawyer.
It's very, I know, yeah, I see the real you. And then, like, Sawyer's like, I hadn't gotten around to it yet.
I have plausible deniability about how terrible of a person I am.
Yeah, yeah. And that's it.
Yep.
I don't know.
That's fine. It was a fine scene, actually. I thought that was fine.
Yeah, it was fine.
Sawyer's good. Sawyer's great. I always love Sawyer now.
Yeah, Sawyer was great, for sure. It's interesting. I wonder how many more scenes of people walking up to Sawyer being like, hey, give me the thing. Like, how many more times is that going to happen?
Just gets played out. Yeah.
I think it's happened like 7 times.
It's maybe. A lot. Oh, boy, is it a lot. This one does answer the question. This one's a little bit different in that it's kind of like what I was thinking about with when Shannon did it with like the bug spray, where it's like, what happens? Like, Charlie doesn't do the Hurley thing of just like, hey, look, it's important to me. It's not important to you. Just let me have it. He doesn't do that. He just punches him and takes it. And it's like, it does answer the question of what happens if somebody just does that? And the answer is nothing, obviously. Like, it works.
Yeah. I mean, Sawyer punched him in the face.
Yeah.
But then that was it.
That was it. Yeah. So it's like, okay, like, yeah, it turns out, I liked it. It was fine. And it's interesting to me just that people have been treating property in this show as something that exists in the same way it would exist in the old world for them.
Uh-huh.
When I'm like, this is not that world. Like, property, Sawyer has it. That doesn't mean anything. You can take it.
Yeah, there's no cops. Except for Hurley, I guess.
Yeah, except for Hurley, yeah. But, like, it's always something I thought was strange of just like, well, he has it. How are we going to get it from him? What are we going to do to get... It's like...
Yeah, if
you can just do stuff.
Go up to Sawyer,
like, like...
If 3 people go up to Sawyer and they're like, give us this, he can't... There's nothing he can do to prevent that from happening.
And I liked, I guess, seeing an aspect of somebody just doing that, just being like, I'm not going to play by these arbitrary rules that aren't real. But yeah, I thought it was a good scene. Also, 2nd episode in a row, this is astonishing, and I hope it continues.
Uh-huh.
No issue with Kate whatsoever this episode.
Yeah, she's kind of just like around.
She's not around a lot.
Yeah.
But she's had this much screen time in episodes, and I've hated it. So,
yeah, that's true.
Cool.
The next thing that happens is basically, okay, Walt sees Boone and Locke in the jungle, and he basically makes up an excuse and follows them. And Michael's like, okay, whatever, bring me some water. And then...
Michael's like, this whole episode is about me being like, I need to keep an eye on you at all times, except I forgot that. And now I'm just like, yeah, sure, go away and do whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't...
Which is fine. It's fine. It's not a big problem. It's just dumb. It's just inconsistent.
For sure. Then the next scene is basically like Boone and Shannon run into each other, and Shannon's like, hey, so I guess like you're not catching boar anymore or whatever. Do you want to tell me what's going on? Also, Michael's thinking about building a raft. Maybe I'll hop on the raft and get the fuck out of here. And Boone is like, oh, she's like, Boone, will you help build the raft? And Boone is like, nah. And that's it.
I feel like she also, doesn't she ask, like, you're not catching any boar. Do you want to tell me what you're really doing? And he's just like, no.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't deny it. He just says, nah, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah. He's also, like, incredibly rude to her. He, like, says some fucked up shit to her.
Yeah, he says, like, that she's been a functioning bulimic for however many years. Like, he thought she'd like to drop a few pounds or whatever. Just this whole thing, too, is just, like, continues zombie Boone, almost, of just, like, it doesn't, even when he's being mean, it doesn't feel like there's anybody behind his eyes there. Like, there's nobody in there.
Yeah, it's really weird. And
I don't know if that's on purpose or not. It's strange. I don't get it.
That's just like his thing now, I guess. Because he had the weird trip last episode.
Yeah, I guess. It's weird.
And he's like, maybe I shouldn't have fucked my stepsister or whatever.
It's weird, not in an interesting way, just in like a this is weird kind of way.
Boone sucks. The next thing that happens is basically like Walt runs into Locke and Boone, and he's like, hey, I want to hang out with you. And Locke's like, nah, you should listen to your dad. And then Michael shows up and he's like, I'll fucking kill you, Locke, if I see you with Walt again. And he's really pissed. And that's it.
I liked that what Locke tells Michael when he's confronted is, I was just going to give him this pencil to give to you. I thought you could use it, right?
Yeah.
Locke is covering for Walt here.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I like that.
Totally.
Like, simultaneously, he's the one that's telling Walt, no, seriously, dude, you gotta listen to your dad. Like, stop talking to me. And then when his dad comes and is mad, he stands up to take the brunt of it, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yay, Locke. That's all I got. That's it.
Yeah, that's this scene. Michael continues to suck on the island. This takes us back into a flashback where Michael's in the hospital and he's doing a little sketching. He's like fucked up. He's got like a really bad broken leg and he's in a wheelchair and stuff. And he bonds with the nurse a little bit about like jokes to tell little kids. Because the nurse is like, I'm a mom, whatever. It's a cute little scene. These flashback scenes, they tend to work. Oh shit. That happens here. So then, like, the next thing that happens is I completely forget this character's name.
I want to say Susan for some reason.
It's something with an S, maybe. Yeah. But Michael's ex shows up and is like, hey.
This sucks. This all sucks.
Yeah, basically what plays out over this scene is she visits Michael and she says, Walt is not here, which sucks, right? That she didn't bring Walt.
Okay, basically, I want to get through this shit quick. Basically, She says, hey, Michael, I'm paying for all of your medical bills. Also, I'm getting married. Also, my boyfriend, husband, wants to adopt Walt. Yeah. And Michael's like, what the actual fuck, everything.
Yes, yeah.
And I'm right there with him. I'm right there with you, Michael. Like,
this is like an incredibly fucked up thing to happen.
This is awful.
Someone.
This is horrible.
You know, I'm curious about this. I don't have much to say on it, but it's like, is this like weaponizing black trauma? Is that what this is?
I also don't feel like I'm the right person to speak on that.
Just like, he's really getting put through the ringer.
I guess it's like, God, it's
all the characters have fucked up shit in their flashbacks. Like, they all inevitably have trauma and shit they're dealing with. This is like, damn, this dude cannot catch a break.
And I have nothing negative to say about the performances or the writing or the whatever. It seems like a good scene, well made, whatever. But this is where flashbacks were fucking rough. Like, fuck.
Yeah, it's a pretty fucked up situation.
I also don't I'm sorry, but it's fine. I'm not criticizing it as a piece of TV. Mm-hmm. Don't fucking come in here and start with, I'm paying for all your medical bills because I know you're poor and I'm rich. And then, and you should be grateful to me for that. So you should be less mad about the fact that this rando wants to adopt your son.
That is like literally what she says.
It is horrible. Also, fuck you in the first place. Don't pay for my medical bills. Get the fuck out of here. I don't know. I just felt like she comes in, and especially the way he was all like, and I'm sure that Michael has problems. We know Michael has problems. I don't love Michael as a person, but it just hurts a lot. Because, yeah, in the beginning flashbacks, the way he was so prepared and ready and upbeat about like, yeah, you know, you're going through school. I'll drop my art stuff to support us while we're poor and you're in school, and then you can make a bunch of money. And now she is making a bunch of money, and she's just like, this is nothing to me. I can cover your medical bills easily. It would have crushed you because you're still poor. Like, I just hated all of it. I hated everything about it, just emotionally.
She does suck. She sucks.
Yeah,
really
she's horrible.
hard.
And
Yeah.
I'm not saying Michael's great either. I'm not saying that Michael, you know, it would be great in a relationship with somebody. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that she is a bad person, and it sucks to see Michael go through all of that.
Totally.
Especially because, goddamn, you're right. His performance in the flashbacks is really good. And it does make me sad that we aren't getting more for him in the present time. I would like to see him be given stuff to work with on a week-to-week basis.
Totally. I agree. That would be cool. All right. Then what happens? Hurley comes up to Michaels and like, hey man, Walt and Vincent just kind of went off into the jungle. And Michael's like, well, I bet he went to see that motherfucker Locke. So he goes up to Locke and Boone, who were just like chilling in a tree or something.
They are.
And Michael's like, hey, I know Walt's around here. He's like all pissed, and basically Locke is like, nope, he's not here. And then they both, like, after he convinces Michael that Walt is not there,
They team up.
they team up. They're gonna go find Walt.
And I have issues with them teaming up, by the way, but we can talk about that later.
Okay, you want to talk about that later?
Yeah, I'll talk about that later.
The next thing that happens is like Charlie and Kate. Basically, just Charlie talks about how he really cared about Claire.
This is the best scene in the episode.
Yeah, and he's like, I really miss her and I'm worried about her and stuff. And Kate gives him a little bit of comfort. And then he like is left with the diary, and he really...
It's an extended bit of him.
Yeah, it's an extended physical comedy bit of him like trying to resist reading the diary.
It's
basically.
a really... It's fun to watch. It actually just is fun to watch. It's a great... I like that they let it go so long, too.
Yeah, they really let him just like play it out. He's like picking it up and like opens it, and then he like puts it down, and he's like,
He's like biting it and shit.
Yeah.
He's biting it. He's sitting on it. He's like... He's great. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's good. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Charlie is a character who they have fucked up in a lot of ways, but he's also still... Overall, I like Charlie.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Basically, the next thing that happens, we see Walt and Vincent wandering through the woods. And then Vincent starts, like, freaking out, barking a bunch. And it's like, what? Is there something out there? And Vincent, he tugs hard enough and, like, pulls out of Walt's... Like, the leash gets pulled out of Walt's grasp. And then Walt is, like, chasing after Vincent.
Who names their dog Vincent, by the way?
Vincent. Well, actually... The
We
person
learn
who
who,
names the
yeah.
dog. Yeah, we do learn that, and I think it actually makes sense.
Okay, no, that's a fair point, yeah.
Because the next scene, we actually get to see Walt's mom and her now husband, Brian. And we see that Walt is basically like the age of... He's
now
his current
aged.
age. Yeah. And basically, like, a couple things happen. One, we see that they're in this incredibly, like, massive fucking house in Australia or whatever.
We also see that his parents don't give a fuck.
Yeah, his parents kind of don't give a shit about him.
God, poor Walt. To
I
go
know.
From that to Michael,
what
like,
the fuck? Like, even his mom does not give a shit.
You can see why he would develop an attachment to somebody like Locke and Sawyer, who also had a scene with him, where it's just like, oh, wait, when I come and speak to you, you listen to what I say and speak back to me. Like,
yeah,
engaging in a conversation with me, not just directing me what to do, but like, you listen to what I've said and we talk together.
Seriously.
I can see how that would be very, like, a big deal to this kid.
For sure. Because basically, like, they're having their little thing, like, Walt's parents are. And then, like, Walt is, like, looking at a book for homework. And he's like, hey, Brian, look at this book. And then, like, Brian keeps not looking at it. And he keeps telling him, wait, look at it. And he's like, you're not looking at it. And then, like, we hear a thunk against the window. and a bird fucking flew into the window.
It's about birds, too, what he wants to talk about. He wants to talk about birds.
Yeah, he wants to talk about birds, and then the bird is like dead on the porch, and then Brian and Walt look at it, and we see Walt go back to doing his reading, where he's reading a book of songbirds, and we see like the same bird like in the book.
We see Brian looking at Walt like he's looking at him like he's the fucking Antichrist.
He does look at him like he's like Damien from The Omen or something.
Yeah, he gives which we learn later that Brian thinks Walt is creepy, basically, and has creepy shit going on.
Yeah, he's like, Walt is one of the children of the corn.
Yes. So, in that context, this look makes sense, but I don't like, and I feel like the show has done this before, where they give us a thing that doesn't make sense, and we go, this doesn't make sense, this is weird, this is a strange thing to watch, and then later they're like, this is why it made sense. But that isn't, they haven't gotten nailed down how to do it in a satisfying way where you're like, oh, now the pieces make sense, because it's not like a big stated thing, it's just a small scene, right? It's like a small exchange, and then later, if you think about it, you're like, oh, that's why this happened. But I think it's bad. It's why stuff like this is because we don't learn that until later about Brian's suspicions about Walt or whatever.
Yeah.
So in this context, it's just very strange and off-putting as a viewer to see that happen, because it doesn't contextually make sense. It feels very out of place. For me, at least. That's how it felt.
Interesting. Yeah. And
this is why I made the comment I did about Hurley saying that he was known as a warrior, because I fully believe that in 8 episodes we learn that Hurley was a wrestler. And they'll be like, see, we laid the foundation and now that scene made sense. But it's like, okay, but that didn't actually add value anywhere. It's not like, the pieces are coming together or anything. It's just like that thing that sucked. If I go back and watch it on a second rewatch, now I will be like, oh, I see. And I feel like there's a lot of that stuff where it's like, okay, yeah, now that thing that didn't make sense makes sense, but that doesn't make it good.
Sure.
I did not like this weird Antichrist look he gave him.
How do you feel about the scene in general? Walt, like, maybe having something going on, some kind of...
I felt really good about it. Honestly, okay, I felt really good about it. We get a little bit of it earlier with Locke making his little quip about, like, was it all in your mind or was it not? Ooh, whatever.
Right.
We also get it with in the comic that Walt was reading was a polar bear.
Oh, yeah, that's important to mention.
And even before we get later on in this episode, I'm like, oh, there's a polar bear in that comic, and there was a weird thing with the polar bear earlier. Weird. So I really liked it. I really liked the bird thing on the window. I thought it was great. I was all in for it. And then this motherfucker does his weird ass look, and I'm like, okay, that killed it. Now I think this scene sucks. Like, it actually killed it for me. His weird look at Walt.
You hate that Brian thinks he's Damien or whatever.
Yeah, well, just because it was a mood killer, right? Because it goes from, like, I don't need that push from a shitty Brian to be feeling creeped, right? I was feeling creeped. And now with Brian giving his shitty look, I'm like, oh, this suddenly sucks. It really did kill the scene for me.
That's interesting. Okay, the next scene is, you just mentioned the polar bear thing in the comic book, which is relevant because the next thing that happens, basically Walt is trying to find Vincent, and he hears something rustling in the tree, in the bushes or whatever, but then it's a fucking polar bear, and it chases him into, like, the hollow of a tree, basically. And Walt is getting to the polar bear, is trying to get him, and Walt's screaming. Yeah, that's that happens. You have any thoughts on a polar bear showing up again?
Whatever.
Nice.
It's cool in the context of the manifesting things and Walt. Like, it does make Walt have weird special powers, maybe, which is cool. But all the stuff with the polar bear itself as a scene, I didn't think was compelling.
Yeah, there's kind of a lot of it.
I was bored.
Do you consider this an answer to the mystery about the polar bear that we saw in, like, episode 2 or whatever?
No.
All right.
Should I? Do you?
I don't know. I'm just mentioning it.
No, I don't, because
consider it an answer.
Because this episode is all focused on Walt manifesting things with his special brain mind, right?
Yeah.
And he had the comic with the polar bear shows up. Whereas the polar bear before, I don't even know if Walt had the comic at that point. Maybe he did. But, like, the Walt wasn't there when the polar bear showed up.
Right.
So and maybe I wouldn't be upset if it was the answer to the first polar bear, but I'm not ready to check off that mystery yet.
Okay. Yeah. It's good to keep note of what, the little mystery checklist. The next scene, we're back in a flashback. And, God, more shit. Michael just continues to be surrounded by the worst people in the entire fucking world because Brian shows up to Michael's house. They've never actually met in person. And basically tells Michael, hey, Walt's mom died. She just got sick really suddenly and she's dead. And she pressured me into adopting Walt. And I actually don't want to raise him.
And never did.
Like
this whole story, that she told you about. Oh, yeah, this guy that I'm going to marry, he really wants to adopt Walt. Like, think about what's best for Walt. Let this happen because you want Walt to have a good life. That was all bullshit.
It was all bullshit. And basically, he's like, I want you to take Walt because I don't want to be a dad.
Yeah, not even, I would say he's not even like, I want you to. He's like, I mean, I guess if the adoption went through, that he would be responsible for Walt. But
it basically...
It's almost framed, as like, I ain't doing it, dude. I ain't fucking doing it.
That is basically what he's saying. And this is also where he tells Michael, hey, sometimes weird things happen around Walt.
Yeah.
And...
he says the same thing that Locke said, right? Where, like, he's different or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, now we understand that, right? And it's like, this guy sucks so hard, like...
He's terrible.
He's such a piece of shit. He also, like... It's also, like, Michael said... Basically, Michael's like, Walt doesn't know me, and you're the only dad he's ever known, blah, blah, blah. Basically, he says sympathetic stuff around it.
Yeah, no, why can't we have this Michael? Why can't we just have this Michael? Because this Michael is the one... This is the dude who really wanted a son, was very excited about having a son, loved his son, loved spending time with his son, and gave that up because an argument was made to him about his son's welfare.
Right.
So he gave all that up. And presumably because we're still in the flashback, so presumably it's flashback Michael who still, like, is a sympathetic human being and not a fucking monster. He, even now, has got a lot of pain around his son and all that, but he still has the composure to be like, what's best for Walt is still you, because you are who he knows as his dad, right? And that's really, that's got to be a hard fucking thing.
Totally.
But he does it not even out of a sense of, like, obligation of, like, well, gee, I really thought about it, and yeah, I think this is what would be best for Walt. No, he's, like, immediately, emotionally, viscerally, like, you are this kid who I no longer have a relationship with, but still care about. You are doing him dirty, and I'm mad at you for it.
Yeah.
And I think a different person who still loved his son could be like, okay, great, I get my son back. Get the fuck out of here, asshole. Right?
Right.
Even though that wouldn't be what would be best for Walt. It's just really good. It's really good that he instinctively, intuitively, and viscerally has Walt's best interest at heart here.
Yeah, he, like, genuinely does.
Yeah, right? It's great. I love it. I just want this Michael.
Yeah, and he's, like, so pissed at Brian, too, when he's just like, you're fucking disgusting that you, like, won't, that you're trying to, like, ditch Walt, right?
Yeah. It's great. I love this Michael. I love Flashback Michael. Like,
yeah.
And we could have had Flashback Mike. We saw the flaws. Flashback Michael has flaws.
Yeah.
Flashback Michael could fail as a dad and be a poor father.
Totally.
But, like, oh.
Why does he have to, like, be a shithead about it? It's like, yeah. It's very disappointing. Honestly, this episode also highlights it highlights that there was an alternate path for Michael, and it gives us a glimpse into what we could have had, and that's disappointing in a way too. Of just being like, oh yeah, this is the character we could have had every week. Gee, wouldn't that have been nice? Yeah, that would have been pretty cool. Yeah, honestly. We can find food, peanuts. We can find food. What do you need? We can find food. Ocean goldfish. We can find food. All right, we're back on the island. Locke and Michael hear Walt screaming, and they start running over to him. And then we're immediately back into another flashback.
Yeah, it's doing that shit.
And it's basically...
He's gonna pick up Walt when he gets a box, right?
Yeah, he's going to pick up Walt. He gets a box, and we saw this box like last episode or 2 episodes ago or something. He was looking at it.
Yeah.
He gets the box like from Walt's nanny because he's in Australia. The next thing that happens... I think he straight up... Oh, no, okay. Next we see...
It's really cutting in between.
It's cutting back and forth a lot here, yeah. Because, like, now we see, like, Locke and Michael run up.
At this point, let's just do bear scene and flashbacks.
Yeah, we'll just finish out the bear scene because it's pretty quick to actually just sum up what happens, which is, like,
and there's really
Locke and
nothing to
Michael
talk
see
about.
the bear trying to attack Walt. The two of them team up, and Michael gets Walt out from under the tree with, like, Locke holding the rope or whatever. And also Michael stabs the bear with the knife, and then it runs away. Yeah, that's it. They save Walt.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you have any feelings about the bear scene? Is it exciting? Is it action, cool, high intensity?
I was enjoying it. I think I was noticing the bear puppet a lot.
The bear was very blurry.
The bear was very blurry. Yeah, they don't want to expose how this thing actually looks, which, tried and true method for doing stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's a little action scene.
I don't know. I wasn't invested. I didn't find it entertaining on its own merits or interesting, but that's just me.
Sure. I was happy that, like, Locke and Michael were teaming up. Like, I'm hoping that they stop, like, I hope that Michael stops, like, hating Locke, because it sucks.
It does suck, yes.
Oh, but you want to talk about that more in a bit.
Yeah.
So then we, to finish out the flashbacks, basically, Michael meets Walt, and Walt is like, who are you? So they have this, like, meeting, and Michael has to give Walt the news that he's taking Walt back with him to the States. And a couple things that happens are, basically, one, Michael is like, you could take your dog, and Walt's like, that's not my dog, that's Brian's dog. And then, like, Walt's like, yeah, Brian said you can have the dog, which he didn't say.
It's hilarious, actually. That part
I
is
do
really
like
funny.
that. Yeah, he's just like, as an extra fuck you to that guy, we're taking his dog.
Yeah, he's like, this dude sucks.
Yeah.
Walt wants the dog. Walt's gonna get the fucking dog. Like,
and this is also a thing where, like, that's cool. That's good.
Yeah,
that
it
he
is,
does
yeah.
that. Shouldn't he care more about Vincent, like, on the island? I feel like he did. I feel like early on he seems like really
no. I'll tell you
about
why.
getting the dog.
No, I'll tell you why though.
Why?
It's you're. I don't know. It's interesting that you're forgetting this part and I'm not. The difference is that here in the flashback scene,
right,
we're dealing with Walt and flashback Michael.
Right.
And then on the island we have Michael.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
No, because you're totally right. Because what should happen with flashback Michael, and this is flashback to like a week ago, Michael, is that Michael should be like, oh, wow, I really care about my son, and this dog is really important to my son. This dog is now really important to me, right? That's what should happen. But no, that does not happen because we have Island Michael, and Island Michael is a distinct person from flashback Michael.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like this flashback takes place like right before they get on the plane, basically.
But
Uh-huh.
It was written many weeks after Island Michael.
That is totally true.
And they did not bother to use the character that they had written. Instead, they invented a different character to use for this episode.
Yeah.
I think it's really bad.
Because then the other thing that Michael does here is basically he tells Walt, he just tells Walt, like, Brian didn't give you up. I decided to take you away because I'm your dad, and that's how that works.
Yeah, because he doesn't want to hurt Walt.
Yeah.
Which
like,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's he's like sacrificing some of that, right? Like, that's probably going to make Walt kind of hate him. And then
he's doing what he thinks is in the best interest of his son.
Right.
And then, and it's the last time he does that.
Yeah. It's like, it's so weird that this is like right before they get on the plane. Because it's like, that's just not, this is the thing where it's just like,
this is why this whole episode,
right?
Aside from like, oh, I think that writing was clunky, or like, I didn't like the way that was shot. This whole, I think I wouldn't have liked it anyway, but this episode can't be good when you have that incongruity, to my mind.
Yeah, it's like when they crashed, like Michael like hit his head and his personality
No,
just kind of changed.
Really,
It's
though, it
weird.
is. It's like Jack is going to be like, oh, hey, turns out you had this brain infection. Like, did you feel weird at all this whole time?
It's like Michael then reflects on it, and he's like, wow, I was so mad at everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, and I treated my son like shit. Like, oh.
Yeah, and we've talked enough about it, right? But what's so disappointing about it is that the writers don't know that that's what's going on.
Yeah.
It's really strange that
Yeah.
they don't see anything wrong with this.
Yeah, this doesn't, like, get us to the right point.
Yeah.
Maybe on the plane, they just had a really shitty conversation or something.
Well, it's I'm not saying that I don't think this is what happened, but it feels like they handed the flashback writing off to a different writer and they just kind of paraphrased what happened on the island without realizing that they'd done a terrible job with Michael.
Right.
And whoever was writing the flashbacks just took their word for it and was like, okay, I'll go write some flashbacks about this guy and his son.
I also wonder...
It's so weird.
I wonder if it's like stuff. Well, I mean, it's definitely because, you have a writing team, you have a writer's room, so there's like different people writing different things. It's also like, I wonder how much of it is like, well, we based the writing of this episode on like the script for the earlier stuff, but like in how it's directed and edited and stuff, comes together different.
Yeah, that is a interesting speculation. I don't know, but the episode can't succeed when its core component fails this hard, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's like the reason that I enjoyed this episode is because like that incongruity, like I just like kind of blanked on the fact that it doesn't bring the pieces together at the end.
Yeah, like
you know?
I can understand, and I also did enjoying seeing flashback Michael. Like it's a good experience to see flashback Michael. It really is. It's a positive experience, and where that positive experience, loses value is when it's in contrast with our normal experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I thought it, Mm-hmm. Good flashback scene, though. That's a nice scene with him and Walt.
It's a good scene.
It's a very good scene. I liked it a lot.
Scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Walt was good in it, too. The acting.
Totally.
I was like, oh, it's actually good.
Yeah, I agree. The next scene, which nearly finishes out the episode, is basically Walt and Michael are safe, and they're back, sitting at a campfire or whatever, and Michael gives Walt the mystery box, which inside the box was all the letters and postcards and shit that Michael sent to Walt over the years that Walt apparently never saw because Walt's mom is just like a fucking monster.
Actually a total fucking monster. Yeah.
She's like a psychopath. Like,
oh my Lord.
Yeah. She got married to a guy who didn't want to have kids while she had a kid and convinced him to adopt her kid while cutting out the kid's actual dad who does want actively to be a part of his life.
Well, and deceiving, not just saying this is what's happening, Michael, get over it, but telling him that, Brian really wants to do this. He really enjoys kids and having the right, just being so manipulative and deceitful about everything.
Yeah. She
is terrible.
She's a pretty horrible person.
And I kind of her being terrible gives us sympathy for Michael and puts Michael through a lot. And creates sympathy and feelings there. And that's fine. So I'm not too mad about her being so terrible. But there is something where I'm just I can't help but wonder if I just think about the writers and I'm like, yo, what did a woman do to you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. For sure.
To make her such a terrible person. I'm like, God damn. And is this some men's rights activist shit with father rights versus it went so hard that I'm just it's fine. I'm not that annoyed about it because again, it did actually I can see that the value it brought towards giving us sympathy towards Michael.
Sure.
So it's not just going off the rails for no benefit, but god damn did it go hard on her.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Walt's like, oh, why did my mom never give me these? And Michael's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, fuck, man.
Yeah,
Yeah. And then what happens is Charlie is reading Claire's diary. We just cut to that. And then, like, he sees... Well, first he's reading stuff and he's like, oh, Claire liked me, or whatever. And then he sees something else and, oh, the music. He's like, oh, shit. He gets a serious face. He goes over to Saeed and Jack and he's like, wait, listen to this thing from Claire's diary. And they're like, Saeed's like, wait, you're reading her diary? And Charlie's just like, yeah, fuck me. I'm an asshole, whatever. But in Claire's diary, she mentions having a dream. She keeps having dreams about a black rock. Didn't you mention something about a black rock? And Saeed's like, yeah, Rousseau mentioned a black rock. Maybe that's where Claire is or something. That's what happens. And basically Jack's like, hey, we can't run off in the middle of the night to go find someplace.
Cut to people running off in the middle of the night.
Yeah, cut to Locke and Boone just like fucking wandering around. I guess they like never sleep and they just kind of wander around even when they're not digging up the hatch or staring at it. They're just in the jungle or whatever. Like, why aren't they hunting Boone at this point?
I don't know. I don't like Boone for Locke. I think that Boone is bringing a cartoonish energy to Locke's cool vibes. And I'm worried about Locke getting kind of silly.
I do kind of agree that I'm concerned about that, particularly because, like, Locke has been a highlight of the show.
Yeah, and they've done a good job having him have weird mystical shit without being silly.
Yeah, I would love if there wasn't some bullshit that started happening. But anyway, the two of them are just wandering through the jungle without a torch or anything. And then, like, they hear some rustling and they're like, oh, what could it be? And Claire wanders out of the jungle, all fucked up but alive. And that's the end of the episode.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, Claire's back. Maybe we'll get some answers to mysteries and plot stuff next episode.
I do wonder, I feel like this happened in an earlier episode with something, maybe with like the Saeed Hurley thing, where Hurley was like, there's somebody not on the manifest, and then at the same time Saeed was like, we're not alone. Where it's like, why did you have the whole, maybe she's at Black Rock, we should go try to find her at Black Rock, and then she shows up. Like,
yeah, it is kind of weird those happen back to back.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's like a horrible travesty. It just doesn't feel like it's cutting itself short. Like it's you know?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
For sure.
You took this energy and then immediately dumped it. I don't know, it's weird.
Totally. Well, that's it for this one. Any final thoughts? It feels like we kind of went into a lot of it in detail.
We did go into a lot of it in detail. And most of it doesn't need to be re-talked about. I think it's bad for small reasons, and the big reason of the Michael that we see in the flashbacks is literally not the Michael that we've seen day to day.
Yeah.
And that's weird. So I wanted to talk just briefly about Locke and Michael's relationship. And because you said you hope this is the end of the weird Michael hates Locke thing.
Yeah.
And I agree that I would like for that to be over because it's silly and dumb and pointless and not entertaining.
Uh-huh.
But I would be annoyed if this episode served as an end to that in a similar way that we had Hurley's Jen stuff serve as an end to that feud. Just because it's this weird energy, I feel like, of this weird bullshit made up feud that should never have existed, got this dumb resolution that didn't need a resolution because it never should have existed in the first place. And I'm not going to complain about it if it ends, because it would be good for it to be over.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know. I guess, A, I would rather have not had it in the first place. And B, if you're going to have it, I would actually find it weirdly more fulfilling for it to just be, for both of them, for Hurley or Michael, just be like, have a moment of like self-reflection and being like, oh, am I actually just being kind of off base here? Like,
yeah, that
maybe I am.
I truly want that.
Yeah.
Maybe Michael can just start acting like the old, like, flashback Michael.
That's what I was going to ask you too. So you might know to some degree, but like, I would love if this was the turning point, and that it would still suck from a writing perspective and that they are bad writers.
Right.
But if you want to just like, because it would be a better character, I'm totally down with you pretending that the previous 13 episodes, were written differently. That
yeah,
strike those out. We're retconning.
We were like seeing Michael's worst moments, right?
Sure, whatever. Who the fuck cares? I don't even need to explain it.
Better. We're off screen.
I do not need a canon explanation to it.
Yeah.
But I don't suspect that will be happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't. That's something that I don't remember.
God damn, flashback Michael was an actual person.
Yeah, he was cool. And it's like, the thing, I like that he has some of the same flaws as Isle and Michael, but he isn't
But they're attached...
an angry shithead.
Yeah, they're attached to a fully fledged human being, like who...
Yeah.
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 It's really frustrating because it shows that they're capable of more than they're doing on a weekly basis, and that's frustrating.
Yeah, I can get that for sure.
All right, yeah. This episode sucked. Do you still like that? You still think it's good?
I'm definitely softer on it, but I did enjoy watching it.
Okay.
You know, I think the flashback story is pretty compelling.
The flashbacks were good. I think, yeah, that a big part of it for me was just that I couldn't enjoy the good parts about it.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Well, next week, I'm hoping some more, like, plot stuff happens. I'd be excited for that.
Yeah.
Maybe Claire, something interesting will happen there, but
I gotta say, you know, like, there have been episodes where I was like, oh, wow, I'm not looking forward to next week because this episode sucked. There have been episodes that sucked where I was like, oh, I'm still looking forward to next week because hopefully it won't suck.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling down after this episode. I'm just like, I think that the next episode will suck because it's the same showmakers. Like, why would it not suck?
Well, maybe this is the beginning of the end, but we'll have to find out.
Episode fucking 14? Oh, no. I certainly hope we've got a little bit more,
We'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right.
That's the greatest mystery. Can we finish Lost?
Yeah, that is a great mystery.
All right. You can find us on all the places, and that's it. We will be back next week for season 1.
Next Tuesday, 5:30 a.m.
Yes.
That's when we drop.
Season 1, episode 15, Homecoming.
5:30 a.m. Who is this one of?
Let's find out. It looks like it is another Charlie episode.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I'll take that.
Yeah.
Thought his flashbacks kind of sucked.
His flashback episode was pretty horrible.
Yeah.
But I do like Charlie. It was also horrible in an entertaining way. So, you know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right.
Well, that's it. See y'all next week.